National leader John Key has been busy making movies.
This is the front page of the Dominion Post. Hundreds more surgeons needed.
We're here today at Westpac Stadium. It holds nearly 35,000 people. And believe it or not, the equivalent of this entire stadium and more leaves every year to permanently live in Australia.
John Key shot this party video before the latest figures were released showing 40,000 Kiwis immigrated to Australia in the past year. Just 13,000 people immigrated from Australia to New Zealand.
We've got to recognise Australia has a massive skills shortage and they're actually recruiting New Zealanders. And in that sort of global war for talent, if you like, it surely can't be New Zealand's long-term objective that we are somehow a big educational facility for Australia's workforce.
The Australian economy is so strong, it is sucking in labour from New Zealand and from elsewhere. Those numbers are likely to come back again at some point in the future.
Well, they've got a 30% income gap at the moment. Why wouldn't you go to Australia if you were an accountant graduating?
Because you might like being a New Zealander. You might not want to live in Sydney or in Melbourne. You might prefer to live in Christchurch.
But it must be a worry. It must be a worry, surely. If we're short of skills, they're short of skills, but they're sucking our skills.
But if the argument is you can solve that gap by tax cuts, then of course that's absolute nonsense. Anybody's pretending that in the political arena really is being very stupid and very dishonest.
There's no question they can afford to do it. It's a question of will. And that will really be the difference between us and Labor. We want to cut taxes. We think that's an ongoing program. It's not a big bang approach, but we think it'll make a difference.
Well, let's have a look at our friends across the Tasman. Labor is offering 31 billion Australian dollars in tax cuts over a 4-year period. Can we possibly dream of matching that?
Well, not those actual sums, though, obviously not. Let's break that down. 31 billion over 4 years, about $8 billion a year, $8 billion a year Australian. The Australian economy is about 7 times the size of New Zealand's economy, so it's about, say, 1.2 billion a year Australian. Take up the exchange rate, say 1.4 billion, roughly.
So it is
New Zealand
possible.
dollars. Those aren't figures which are necessarily sort of completely out of sight, if one likes.
And 1.4 billion isn't far off the extra revenue Dr Cullen's already been taking each year by not moving personal tax thresholds since the year 2000.
More and more people have been paying more and more tax, and as a consequence, taxpayers are paying every year now about an extra $1.2 billion in personal taxes.
Changes to working for families mean that more families in work are now eligible for tax credits.
Most of that extra tax revenue has been spent on working for families, superannuation, education, health and infrastructure.
Those have been big priorities for the government. They are both economic and social imperatives for New Zealand. Now is the time, I think, to move on to the issue of personal taxation.
Helen Clark agrees, telling the Labor Party conference personal tax cuts can go ahead in election year.
Well, what a great conference it's been.
She says Treasury officials have finally admitted they got their estimates wrong and have now told the government the budget surpluses are here to stay.
I think the important thing is the acknowledgement that it has been wrong. We've been operating on advice that hasn't helped us make some of the longer-run strategic decisions we'd like to have made.
Well, unfortunately, it's a very convenient excuse for the Prime Minister to sort of blame the officials' argument, but it's just simply not true.
John Key says Treasury advised the government way back in 2003 its surpluses were big enough to cut taxes.
Does she stand by her statement in regard to a personal tax cut that, quote, I'd like to have done it earlier, and I think all our Cabinet and caucus would have, but we've never had advice which made that possible, end quote, if so, why?
Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, yes, because, and I'm sure they're going to like the answer, Madam Speaker.
Helen Clark says the government did get that Treasury advice and did make tax cuts, but not personal tax cuts that National would like.
Our government has not been prepared to sacrifice investment in areas like health and education to fund tax cuts. That's National Party policy.
Order.
The debate in Parliament over the timing of personal tax cuts in election year has been robust.
Tired old retreads of the 90s sitting over there.
So expect another Me Too election campaign here in New Zealand next year, where the parties argue about who's got the biggest tax cuts and whether we can afford them. But the economists are saying there's another fundamental problem that we must resolve if we're ever going to close the income gap with Australia, and that is low worker productivity. It seems we're working hard enough, we're just not working smart enough.
The challenge for New Zealanders, if we don't increase that growth rate, if we don't lift those wages, then we'll just never catch Australia, or at least narrow that gap with Australia.
We need to do something about New Zealand's infrastructure if we want to get the country moving.
To close the income gap, National would not just cut personal taxes, but borrow to fund faster infrastructure growth.
Net debt is positive in New Zealand. We have more cash than debt we actually hold. So debt's not the issue. New Zealand doesn't have a debt problem. New Zealand has a growth problem.
New Zealanders do not want to borrow for tax cuts.
But that's not what he's saying. He's saying let's borrow to speed up the development of infrastructure. Let's spend it on...
roads?
Let's spend it on something that's going to appreciate over time, not tax cuts on wages. Roads, bridges, whatever, infrastructure.
Well, we are building roads at the moment about as fast as the New Zealand economy can build them. If he tried to push a lot more money into road building, you'd see further strong inflationary pressures and you'd see higher interest rates and people on mortgages having to fork out miles more than their tax cut in order to pay for the increase in their mortgage.
He doesn't believe in tax cuts. And he's made it quite clear. He doesn't think it'll make any difference to the New Zealand economy. He doesn't think it'll make any difference to the number of people leaving for Australia. And he ideologically believes that he can spend your money better than you can spend it yourself.
I have to balance not just what the government wants to do, but also what Kiwis say very clearly they want. And they want a responsible government, not a kind of spendthrift, Merrill Lynch offshoot, let's borrow and have a good old party time kind of government, which is what Mr Key is saying he wants to see.
Treasury estimates next month will give Dr Cullen a better idea of how much room there is for personal tax cuts. But they're unlikely to block the stampede of skilled workers to Australia.
We don't expect huge tax cuts because tax cuts are expensive. You know, $10 across the board is well over $1 billion a year. $20 across the board is well over $2 billion a year.
So we're going to have to wait till May.
Going to have to wait till May.
Now, Maxine McHugh, who you saw in our story, has scored a massive upset in Australia. It looks as though she's won Beenalong, a seat held by John Howard, for 33 years. After the break, talented young filmmaker Julian Shaw. He watched New Zealanders watch the All Blacks lose and made a film. But are we ready for it?
It certainly looks like the same killer.
A forensic expert struggling to solve a murder.
The evidence was inconclusive.
Everybody knows he did it.
Goes looking for clues.
She looks a bit like the victims.
Another woman's been killed.
What's your interest in her?
I'd like to make sure she doesn't die.
And discovers truth often lies just beneath the surface. Tom Conti stars in the Sunday Theatre.
We're complicated creatures.
DNA. Next, TV1.
Christmas is looking good at Postie Plus with fantastic gift ideas for under $15. There's a huge range of cosmetic gift sets, accessories, gift cards and more for all the family. Get into Postie Plus this Christmas.
This is a Telecom World Mode phone. In the past, when you wanted to travel overseas with your Telecom mobile, there were only a few countries you could go. Then there were more countries, but you couldn't get consistent coverage, or you'd have no idea what minute rate you'd be charged. Now there's Telecom World Mode Global Roaming. With a Samsung World Mode handset, you can roam to around 140 countries using the same phone and same number with easy zone-based pricing. Now Telecom lets you roam like never before.
ESP. In cars, it means Electronic Stability Program. With it, if an accident happens, the chances of it being fatal are reduced by 43%. Perhaps that's because the chances of a car with ESP rolling over are reduced by 77%. So what are your chances of finding a vehicle with ESP in New Zealand? If that vehicle's a Hyundai and bought new in New Zealand, those chances are 100%.
Getting kids to eat veggies can be hard. Top up their fibre needs with new Metamucil Fibre Sure. It's 100% natural and dissolves into food without affecting the taste. Fibre your family will love. Top up with new Metamucil Fibre Sure.
We're not here to follow a sales script. We're here to help you. It's all part of the service.
There are super clever people in New Zealand that make all sorts of neat stuff. You'd be surprised. Some stuff you'll never see because it goes straight off overseas.
But there are plenty of brilliant Kiwi-made goods that just go by truck to your local shops.
And because we make them here, we're making jobs.
and we're making money. All we have to do is make an effort. If you buy Kiwi, we've got it made.
Bring out your natural fizz with a daily Barocca performance. Its sugar-free formula can help you stay alert and reduce tiredness. Take Barocca Performance every day and bring out your natural fizz.
It's just a tap, a glorified valve. So why are you so disappointed? Sure, it's not the one you ordered or the one the builder agreed to fit, but it's close. Not quite as curvy or as stylish, true, but it'll do the job, right? After all, it's just a tap. At David Reed Homes, if we say we'll deliver something, we'll deliver it, down to the kitchen tap. For more about this unique approach, go to davidreedhomes.co.nz.
Stories affect people.
They have taken that pony from this community.
We're looking for people's stories.
I want him to come home because he's my friend.
You'd like to think that what you do makes a difference, and sometimes it does.
You're good mates.
Yeah, we are. We're buddies.
Just bring them home because we love them.
And some good news for a change. Both Timothy and Flick are now back at riding for the disabled. The best job I've ever had? This one. Closer. No one gets you closer.
Welcome back. Julian Shaw is a young man who seems wise beyond his years. He made his first movies at 5, wrote his first novel at 9, and started producing his first documentary at 15. It went on to win one of the top awards at the recent Documentary New Zealand Festival. Now, as Mark Kreisel reports, he's turned his lens on our national obsession.
I just felt like the world had stopped for a moment, to be honest.
Another Rugby World Cup. Another kick in the guts.
Not again, not again. I bawled my eyes out. I know a lot of Kiwis didn't, you know.
It's over. Well, almost hard to believe. What's happened? 20 points to 18.
And just when we thought we'd finally put it all behind us, a documentary by a young Kiwi is about to pick at the scab that's become our national obsession.
Cup of Dreams, it's the story of a nation looking for its identity, you know, for its place in the world, and putting all its hopes and dreams on the shoulders of this team of guys.
This team Graham Henry has built that's getting better every year is going to peak at a World Cup.
We have managed
that's kind of the anticipation that we all
the memory
and the unknown
of David Kirk, you know.
It's painful for the national psyche, so why should we even listen to this kid? I mean, for Pete's sake, Julian Shaw lives across the ditch. What the hell does he know about the All Blacks? Well, you might be surprised.
I was having the strangest emotional reactions to the All Blacks playing. When you're outside of New Zealand, it's funny, that makes you most proud to be a Kiwi, and they are just this embodiment of home. Why was I feeling so strongly? How is it that this rugby team, you know, was the one thing that could bring me to tears, you know? Why did I care so much about the World Cup? Why did I think it would improve my life if they won? You know, I had to actually explore this because it was getting into a serious obsession, you know? This was just a book that I wrote when I was about 10, and this is a children's book.
He might be only 21, but Julian Shaw already has a significant body of work behind him.
This is my second book, actually.
Your second?
I must admit.
How old were you when you wrote your first book?
Well, I was 9 when I wrote.
It was while he was growing up in New Zealand that he started to see the big picture. At 4 years old, Julian was directing his family in videos.
Like, Mum, can you make me a sponge cake and put lots of cream on it? And then, you know, we'd wish him a happy birthday and he'd direct the camera angle and then he'd just plunge his face head first into it. So I'd say, yeah, that was his earliest movie. Yeah.
It quickly became apparent to his parents that their son was something of a child prodigy.
He was so wise, seriously, from birth. He knew himself so well and he just had he had great rapport with people all the way through from his very early days on, and he was just... He was really special. I mean, you know, all mothers think their kids are special, but he was, and you know, he's a gifted child, and just, pretty remarkable child.
All through his childhood, Julian was writing, drawing, and making remarkably mature movies.
In the bathroom this morning, the little bottles were glaring at me. Predatory. All day I feel like jaundice warmed up. I want to finger the sallow wood of deliverance.
By the time he was a teenager, his family had relocated to Sydney, and he'd talked his way into an after-school job at his favourite magazine.
I'm Julian Shaw. I'm 16 years old and I write for a magazine called Filming.
When these pictures were shot, Julian was already well underway on his first documentary.
When I was 15 years old, I saw a show that changed my life. One man on stage, Peter Durkase.
How was it from the side?
Good, very good, very interesting. No one could see me because it was in a shadow.
That gives a nice different perspective, eh?
It changed my life. It really did, you know, in that one moment. I knew I had to tell his story.
There he is. This chap...
Julian watched a performance by Peter Durkase, a South African political satirist, talking about the AIDS crisis.
But I went up to him after the show.
And when I met Julian, he was 15 years old.
And I said, mate, I think that you're a divine inspiration. And, you know, you might laugh at this, but I want to try and make my first film about you.
Oh, you want to make a film? He said, yes. I said, why didn't you come to South Africa? Okay.
He said, okay, sure. Not believing for a second that this would eventuate.
Julian rang everyone he knew and asked for money, and by 16 he had enough to travel to South Africa and start shooting his documentary. But first of all, he had to ask his mother.
You know, my heart was in my mouth when I waved him goodbye because it seemed to me like an incredibly dangerous place. And here he was setting off on the first journey when he was only 16.
The people get shot here.
We get shot out, children.
It was dangerous, and Julian was naive. On his very first day in South Africa, he started filming in a township.
You know, there'd been like 2 people killed on the street that day. I mean, I went into people's homes with my camera. It was madness, you know. I mean, it's the kind of thing where a bullet could have just caught you, but maybe that's just the unbridled optimism of youth. I'm glad I got away with it.
Sawubona, Dumela, Molo, hello.
Peter Durkase is a national icon in South Africa. He's a sort of a political Barry Humphries, Dame Edna type.
You have done a wonderful work, and we're proud of you.
He'd fought against apartheid and has taken on the ANC government over its AIDS policies.
You mustn't be frightened of a virus.
More than 1 million school children have seen his AIDS awareness show.
Uncle Desmond Tutu came to me and he said, why am I not in your show?
Despite being a teenager, Julian was able to pull off some major coups, like interviewing Archbishop Desmond Tutu.
We owe a great deal to him or her. I don't know. What? Him, her? I weet nie.
But Peter Durkase's private life has remained just that, private. Somehow this 16-year-old managed to gain his trust and access that no other filmmaker had ever had.
Nobody knows about my private life. Nobody knows anything about me. And nobody comes to my house with a camera except you.
You do win people over when you show them that you have perseverance, you know, that you are going to stick with it, that you got dignity, that you're going to do a good job. It takes time to win people over, there's no question.
It took 3 years and 6 trips to South Africa to finish the documentary. He raised $200,000 to complete it.
If you kind of had one message to send to the Minister of Health, what is it in a nutshell?
Resign. No, I would. Just get the hell out of here. Get the hell out of here. Take your pension and off.
He even convinced his principal to give him time off school.
That's my proudest achievement. I don't know how I got away with it. In my last year of school, I convinced them to let me go to school just 2 days a week while still trying to complete my HSC, and then I could work on the film on the other days.
Do you ever have self-doubt?
I guess I just became aware of this thing when I was a kid. You know, life's short, and if you don't express yourself, what's the point? If you don't give it a go, you know, you don't want to look back and regret anything. So, to me, self-doubt is the enemy of that.
Julian Shaw.
Darling, the Peter Durkase story was finished late last year. Already it's won its young filmmaker 2 major awards at this year's Documentary New Zealand Festival and has been chosen for the prestigious Berlin Film Festival. Which brings us back to that bloody Rugby World Cup.
Yes! He walks over
Julian and his family have been obsessed with the All Blacks since he was a kid.
This was the week that we moved to Australia was when this game was.
I love that. Oh, God, it's one of the best moments ever.
For the past few months, he's been following a bunch of hardened All Black fans in New Zealand as they dreamed the impossible World Cup dream. One of them was his sister.
Because it was Julian, I think had it been anyone else, I probably would have closed down, but I think it actually allowed me to sort of really express how I feel and say what I think.
If they win, I don't know why, but in a weird way, I think it will, like, make me feel much better about my life, because if they can finally win, then maybe I can finally win too.
It's like someone's died.
Was it better for your documentary that they lost?
It is better. It's taken me time to see that. You know, this film was never about the rugby, and it's not really about the All Blacks or the World Cup. That's just a backdrop. That's just a graphic illustration of this passion, which is an ongoing obsession. And it's about exploring that and exploring that in people's lives.
Have you found out answers?
Pretty simply, it's not about rugby, it's about home, and it's about identity. And to me, the All Blacks represent home, and that's where the emotion comes from.
On the face of it, Julian Shaw was just another Kiwi kid who dreamed of being an All Black. But at 21, with 2 documentaries, a couple of novels, and another one on the way, and a feature film in development, you get the sense there's still a few more goals to be kicked.
Flags go up. The All Blacks.
You know, when I look at some of the fun that I've had in the last 21 years, you know, going to South Africa and making this movie, coming to New Zealand, meeting the All Blacks, I just can't wait to see what the future holds. I don't know what it holds, but I'm excited.
Julian's film Darling has just won a major award in Australia. Cup of Dreams will be released in March. Next week, suntans. More specifically, sunbeards. Just how safe are they? Well, a 20-year-old Dunedin woman wishes she'd never tried so hard for a tan.
For the last 10 months, Chrissy has been battling an aggressive, potentially fatal skin cancer.
Do you attribute your melanoma cancer to sunbedding?
Yes. At my age, you don't get melanoma. It's very unlikely to get a skin cancer at my age. And doctors have said to me, how have you ended up getting this skin cancer?
Chrissy, like many teenagers, began using sunbeds to look like all of those tanned models in the magazines.
Girls want to be brown. They want to look like a goddess in their bikini on the beach. You feel prettier and happier, and you feel good when you have a sunbed.
And also next week, a special investigation into the most enduring mystery of 2007. On May the 3rd, Madeleine McCann went missing, and that's perhaps one of the few established facts of this case. The rest range from the wildly speculative to the absurd. In this BBC Panorama special, Madeleine's dad, Jerry, speaks in a personal video, as does the woman who believes she saw Madeleine being carried off. We separate fact from fiction in this fascinating story next week. Just before we go, we'd like to share some success enjoyed by the Sunday program at last night's Qantas Television Awards. First, correspondent Ian Sinclair won Best Current Affairs Reporting for his story on Taito Phillip Field.
Here, my picture on television, okay?
Hey, do you know where the Thai Tyler is, Mr. Sunan Sirawan?
I don't know. I don't want that thing over here.
Plainly, Mr. Field's household wasn't going to cooperate.
Thank you.
I call the police on you, okay?
Questions we had for Sunan Sirawan were, why would a Thai travel all the way to Samoa to get a visa to work in New Zealand? What, if anything, did Taito Phillip Field promise him? In short, what's his version of the Field affair?